long-term care insurance, which again, like life insurance, like annuities, is still very misunderstood. I mean, the last time I checked, long-term care insurance was somewhere between a 5 and 7% penetration rate in this country. The entire country needs long-term care insurance, yet 5 to 7% of people have it, which means 95 to 93% don't have it. And there's so many misconceptions. A, it's expensive. No, it's not. B, it's nursing home coverage. It's anti-nursing home coverage. Long-term care insurance keeps you home where you live the longest, and this way you can get your services at home. And I always say this is a sad thing, but if one thing was proven to us during COVID, where we had 1 million deaths in this country, the seniors that were in homes, in facilities, in communities, in Florida, true statistic, more than 75% of them passed away because they locked the doors. I'm not complaining about, assisted living facilities. They thought they were doing the right thing. We don't want to let germs in from the outside. COVID is very serious. And what they did was across the country, but especially here in Florida where, the average age of a person is, about 107, something like that. What they did really by locking those doors was they created a petri dish. I mean, they really did. And I have friends that watched their parents and grandparents pass away during COVID through a glass window because they couldn't come in and be with them. But the seniors, the friends that I have with parents who were living at home, who had long-term care insurance, they're still with us today. So it's sad that COVID delivered that message, but I hope the country is paying a little more attention to what happened to people that were in the home rather than people that were at their own home.
So here's what I'll say. There's no place like home. Okay. Going to a hospital or spending time in a is not meant to get you well. That's so anybody that's had any family member that's had to have an extended stay in a medical facility knows that the longer they stay, the more likely is that they're going to get sicker. Now, if you're going in for a surgical procedure or something that's on demand, you want to get it done. You want to know you've recovered and get the heck out of there because wellness happens at home. As people get older, Michael, we shared this story. In my case, you brought up my dad, and I'll use that as a point of reference. We weren't able to get him a long-term care policy. He gained weight rapidly. He had some heart-related issues. There were some things that kept him out of the eligible market for a long-term care policy. It wasn't about affordability because he was young enough. The whole thing about affordability is really about getting to a long-term care policy early enough while you're healthy enough, and the premiums are very affordable. So what happened? Thank goodness I was doing okay. I'm certainly not wealthy by any imagination, nor was I when my father found he was in the place where he needed help. But I personally became his long-term care policy. Mm-hmm. I had to have Dad move in with me. When he was falling down in the middle of the night, I'd have to get out of my bed and pick him up because we did not have access to that additional help. But to the specifics about long-term care, I agree with you. Every person in their 40s in this country should absolutely start looking at their options for long-term care. Mm-hmm. The benefits of long-term care, to your point, allow you to deal with whatever you have to deal with in the comfort of your home, with the assistance that's available to you. Getting it early enough when you're healthy enough and life is good, it's very affordable. We're all going to get there, and I'm sure all of our listeners know people that got to the point where they needed help going to the restroom, or maybe needed help doing something as simple as bathing or dressing. Those are called activities of daily living. And when those things start to fall down, long-term care is built to help that person, so it takes the burden off of us. When I speak to people, Michael, about long-term care, I often will ask them and say, depending on the nature of the dialogue, if you love your loved ones, love yourself enough to get a long-term care policy so the burden's not on them, so they can keep being loving to you while you're getting the care and support you need from what that policy offers you.
Well, so my first book was Paychecks and Playchecks, and I was giving that talk down in San Diego about 10 years ago, and there was somebody there from PBS, And they said, Tom, we need to take this message out to the American people. They're getting the wrong message from all these other talking heads, but we're not sure they're going to understand this paycheck and playcheck thing. We would need a simpler title. So I wrote, Don't Worry, Retire Happy, because I think everyone understand that. And there's 7 simple steps to a happy and successful retirement. And all of this is based in math and science. This isn't my opinions. I'm not making this stuff up. This is the research of the leading PhDs around the world.
Go into that just a little
Yeah,
more.
so
I read
I'll
the
just
book.
go through the 7 steps, and if you want to dig deeper, we can. Step number 1, you need to have a plan. How can you get anywhere if you don't have a roadmap or GPS or a plan of how to get there? And with that, I say you've got to work with a financial professional. Retirement is not a do-it-yourself project. Look, I know this stuff inside and out, and I work with several financial advisors because I don't follow every company, every product. They change their interest rates every 2 weeks. I need an advisor to help me do that. Step number 2, you need to understand and maximize your Social Security benefits. You know, Social Security is the largest retirement asset most people have, and yet they spend more time planning their summer vacation than learning how to get the most of those valuable dollars. Step number 3, consider a hybrid retirement. That's what I do. Instead of going to retirement cold turkey, I'm 70% retired. I play golf 4 to 5 days a week. I play pickleball 2 days a week, but I'm here with you today. Today is a work day, and I'm working almost all day. All right, so I still do some work, but my wife and I are leaving in a couple of weeks, going to Australia and Singapore and Thailand. We went on a Mediterranean cruise, Panama Canal cruise. So we've designed a lifestyle where we can be mostly retired, but I still do some of this. Step number 4, you can't just have income. You have to have increasing income to protect you from inflation. So you got to guard against inflation. Step number 5, retirement's all about income. It's not about assets. I don't care how many assets you have. That doesn't do anything for you. It's how much income you have every month and how you're managing risk. Step number 6, you must have a plan for long-term care. I'm sure some of the panelists would agree. No retirement plan is complete without a plan for long-term care. Step 7, use your home equity wisely. For most people, their house is one of the largest assets they have. There are several ways you can use that equity while you're still in retirement. And then I wrap up with the most efficient way to pass wealth to children, grandchildren, and charities is with life insurance. I say, don't leave your kids any money. You're supposed to spend your money. Leave them life insurance because you can do that for pennies on the dollar. So if people would just follow those 7 simple steps based in math and science, they would never run out of money. They're not going to worry. They're going to have plenty of income in retirement. It's going to be increasing for the rest of their life. They're going to be protected against long-term care, protected against market crashes, protected against living too long, protected against high taxes, and they're going to have an enjoyable retirement like what I'm doing. I'm not just talking the talk. I'm walking the walk.
I think it's time. It's sort of the right time for people to take a step back and you look, how has the healthcare system treated you? And the truth of the matter is, we live in a day and an age that the healthcare system is a profit-centered system, and they don't care for you. But here's the good news: you alone have full agency over yourself. Don't be in a place where you feel like you have to be a slave to a system. Take agency back of your own healthcare. And what this really does is says, this is the truth. And the truth is, I, as an individual, am in control of my healthcare. The doctors work for me. I am not your patient. You are my doctor. And I just would implore people, take agency back for yourself. We live in a day and an age of information. You can take agency back now with a platform like ours. It's the first step in saying, my care can be controlled by myself. I don't have to be a victim anymore. And I really want people to take that agency back.
Wow. What final thoughts?
Yeah.
You're going to have to top that now, because now I'm going to say, Leanne, any final thoughts? And you got to top that. That's not easy. Pressure.
Yeah.
Very heavy
yeah.
pressure.
No, it's an incredible service. It's a program that I believe wholeheartedly in. Everybody that I love will have this. And I hope that those of you that are out there that are listening to this can see the need and know that it can be filled for very, very little money. And it's a great gift that you're giving to yourself and to your family.
Absolutely. All righty. Well, I'm going to remind everybody to go to www.62WhoKnew.com. Click on the whole person virtual care link. You are going to have a code there to give you a 5% discount. So it just got less expensive than $250, which is incredible. You're going to have options to go to their website, which is consumer friendly, and do more research. Or you're going to have an option to just say, I want to do it right now. Enroll right now. For millions of Americans, the greatest asset they own is their home. Yet most of that equity sits locked away, unused. What if there was a way to unlock your home's value without debt, without interest, and without monthly payments? Introducing Chiefs, converting home equity into financial success. A revolutionary strategy that lets you turn a small piece of your home's equity into cash you can use today to protect your retirement tomorrow. Visit 62WhoKnew.com to learn how Chiefs can fund long-term care, annuities, life insurance, or lifestyle goals. Whether you're purchasing a new home or refinancing the one you love, one thing has never changed. Mortgages remain the most inexpensive cost of funds available. And in today's market, choosing the right mortgage professional can save you thousands and help secure your financial future. That's why the 62 Who Knew podcast partners with American Pacific Mortgage, one of the nation's most respected lenders, helping homeowners make smart decisions at every stage of life. Visit 62whoknew.com to learn how the right mortgage strategy can power your retirement plan.
Absolutely. Number one need that we have is loving connection to ourselves, to the spiritual, to our family, to our friends. And we need to be emotionally honest about feeling bad and moving to a better state. And we don't need, like I said to my husband, I said, would you rather that I come home and complain about what just happened for an hour, where you have to listen to me for an hour? Or would you prefer to listen to me for 5 minutes, spiral up? And most spouses would say, I'd actually rather listen to you spiral up, and then we can go run and play and have a good time together. So essentially, it's expeditious to be able to move through that with the people you love. And also just alone, when you wake up at 2 o'clock in the morning and you can't sleep, you just reach for that app and you spiral up, and all of a sudden all those sleep chemicals start being activated. So it's very practical.
And it's also very convenient, which again, in today's crazy, highly technical world, where especially the younger generation, but even the older generation, is into immediate satisfaction. So sometimes when you talk to someone about, and I'm a believer in therapy, but therapy, and it's going to take time and it's going to take months and sometimes it takes years, that's true. But you seem to have created, um, something that is immediate satisfaction. I mean, 3 minutes, if you can't give 3 minutes to your emotional health, well, then you got a lot worse problems than you probably think.
I really do understand why people want immediate results, because they're suffering. And the interesting thing about this, and again, as I developed that with my colleagues at UCSF, it's not psychotherapy, it is neurophysiology. But it turns out, because therapy or psychology is basically chemicals and electricity, is basically physiologic. Therapists use it to fast forward their patients to feeling better. And what's interesting is, and we train people, therapists to do it, within 3 months of the time they start EBT, they have had so many breakthroughs, because in that moment where you spiral from the bottom of your brain in charge, where all that stress is, to the top part of your brain where all that joy and purpose is, what happens is every time you feel better, your brain gets better. Your brain gets rewired. And as it's rewired, all of a sudden your brain wants to be in that joy state more of the time. So typically after 3 months in an EBT group, therapists that have to learn it personally in order to be certified as well, they have so many breakthroughs that they just want more and more and more to do with it. And if they stay with it with their patients for 1 year, most patients now are on multiple medications. And on the average, if a therapist is using EBT, of course, we want you just to be part of the community and just do it yourself, because we have health professionals there. But if you also go out and you're with a therapist, ask them if they're certified in EBT, because what happens is, more often than not, by 1 year of using this to rewire the circuits that control your biochemistry that cause chronic disease and mental health, people are off medications. Now, we don't recommend going off medications. What we do is want you to be learning EBT until you're so happy and so healthy that you can move off them and still feel happy and healthy. So this is the new medical care that's of the people.
There's just no doubt about that. And let's face it, um, We all know people on medication. There's nothing wrong with that. It
No.
doesn't have the, the label that it used to have, but they have side effects. Like everything, they have side effects. And if you could do this in a natural way, which is the way it's supposed to be through your brain, what an incredible advantage.
Mike, I think when you go back in your career, portion of my career, you think about how important it is to help older adult homeowners. It's a very broad phrase, tens of millions of them. And ultimately, you want to provide them with the products and services and solutions that will improve their lifestyle, that will help them ultimately achieve their goals, whatever their goals are. You talked before, Mike, about the fact that the purchase reverse mortgage product has not succeeded. It's failed. We know what's happened in the reverse mortgage industry more broadly. There hasn't been growth since the peak back in 2008, 2009. In fact, you described it well. And I think sometimes you have to ask yourself what's wrong. And ultimately, it just comes down to, while we know older adult homeowners will access home equity in order to generate those income benefits, those health benefits that will help them more successfully age in place, there are just certain types of products that they just don't want to entertain.
Yeah.
Debt, reverse mortgages, we know the story. So sometimes you have to come up with the products that people want. And when you have a conversation with an advisor and that advisor's client, and you ask them the following question: how comfortable do you feel selling your $1 million house and downsizing to a $500,000 house and using that $500,000 that you just monetized to improve your retirement outcomes going forward? Buying annuities, buying long-term care, whatever it is. And the answer is very comfortable. So you think about that for a second and you say, okay, so they're comfortable selling their home equity to buy the kind of critically important retirement-oriented insurance and investment products that will help them achieve their goals. Well, is there any difference than staying in that $1 million house, selling 30% of it, and doing the exact same thing? And when it's positioned that way, I think advisors and their clients get the joke.
Yeah.
There are better ways to access the largest asset we have to improve my outcomes without taking on obligations. And obligations are, of course, debt and other debt-like products. So, thank God, Dan and I decided to spend a lot of time thinking about, what advisors want, what their clients want, the products that are in the marketplace, distribution that's in the marketplace. But ultimately, it just comes down to really understanding your customer.
Yeah.
And when you really understand your customer, and let's face it, insurance and financial advisors understand their customer. They've got decades of trust with their customers. Now we can all help them serve their clients better. And if we're successful in doing that, we've obviously succeeded.
Absolutely. And two words that Dan used 2 or 3 times, but in the middle of a sentence. So I just want to stress it before we go off the air. Chiefs is a non-debt product. It is a non-debt product. You are being handed a 6-figure check. My God, I'm sure you would do. Would you do $1 million on a $3 million house? It could be a 7-figure check.
We have.
Okay, so you're being handed a 6 or a 7-figure check. There's no related debt service. There's not a payment next month. There's not a balloon in 3 years. It's. I know I keep saying the same thing, but it's a life changer. It is an absolute life changer / market disruptor when it comes to financial planning, and probably at a time in this country where it has never been able to, is needed it the most. I can't think at my ripe old age, at least in my lifetime, of a time that there are more people in their 40s and 50s right now going, what the hell am I going to do to make it the next 30, 40 years? And there's got to be more people asking that question. But I bought my house 12 years ago, and I have $700,000 in equity. Well, if you don't do anything with it, sounds good, but that's about all it does, is sound good. It's time to do something with it.
When we look at our shoes, and we've been told our whole lives that the best shoes for us to wear will have arch supports and heel supports and soft cushiony soles and just make our feet feel like we're walking on air. What happens is everything in your body starts at your feet. And when your shoes are in that type of a shoe where you got a thick sole, arch supports and heel supports and so forth in it, the foot itself can't bend. So each foot has 33 joints and 29 muscles in it. The ankle has to bend as well. So when you're wearing a thick shoe like that, it prevents the ankle from bending because the foot cannot bend. Now what happens, instead of propelling yourself with your foot, you're propelling yourself with the quads, which are on the front of your thighs and your inner thighs. Now that's important for the back because as those muscles tighten, because they go and attach to the pelvis, when they tighten, they pull the pelvis forward, which increases that curve that's naturally in the small of your back that will lead to things like bulging disc and herniated disc and pinched nerves. When you stand up for long periods of time, those muscles on the front of your thighs from the way you're walking from the shoes has the pelvis tilted forward. So therefore the muscles across the lower back have to stay in a contracted state so that you can stand up straight. Otherwise you tilt forward, and then that'll lead to head forward posture, giving you neck and shoulder issues as well. It all starts at the feet.
That's just amazing. What you just said in the last 60 seconds is amazing to me, because I've had back issues before.
Yeah.
Hurt myself in the gym, this or that. The last several months, so much more serious than ever. And for the first, and I have, when I went to my podiatrist, and as you get, you sit around in your 40s. I'm saying this to our producer because he's in his 40s, and you hear people go, I went to this doctor today. Tomorrow I'm going to this. Next month I have, and you go, oh my God, they're old. And then one day you're sitting around with your friends going, I have a doctor's appointment Tuesday. I have a doctor's appointment. I got a lot of doctors suddenly. And I love my podiatrist, but she got me these unbelievable inserts to put in all my shoes. Which, by the way, were $80, and I have a lot of shoes. And I could be switching them around every morning, but I don't want to do that. I'm too lazy. Plus, I have to bend down, and it hurts. So I bought a lot of them. And for some reason, for the first time with all my back injuries in the last 30 years as an adult at the gym or whatever, the front of my thighs is killing me at night. And it's just, you're the first person to ever bring any connection up between me having and I feel like I'm walking on air. I'm wearing a pair of sneakers now, a name brand. I'm not going to say what name because they're not going to pay me any money. It's Nike. I like Nike. And I've got these incredibly cushy stuff in them. I do feel like I'm walking on air. But when I get up in the morning, the front of my thighs are killing me for the first time in my life.
So
that's
so
it's just amazing that you just brought that up to me.
So here's something to think about. And your listeners can do this right now if they want to. If you stand up and your low back hurts when you stand up, but when you sit down, it stops. The pain is coming from the front of your thighs. If it's in the middle of your low back, it's coming from your inner thighs. If you lay in bed and you realize you can't lay with your legs straight out and you need a pillow under your knees, that's telling you the front of your thighs are tight.
Now, I'm the opposite, which has baffled my doctors. When the more I walk, the better I feel. When I lay down, that's when I'm in pain.
Not a problem.
Now, I get up at 3 in the morning, my front of my thighs are killing me. I get up, I take 3 steps, I feel better, but I'm not sleeping. Which is not good for my irritability. Not good for it,
right. So here's what's happening. When you get up and start walking, you're forcing warm blood through the muscle tissue, which makes the muscle tissue become more pliable. I get people all the time who will say to me, when I first get out of bed, my back is killing me. And when I take some 3 or 4, 5, 10 steps, it seems to go away. What happened there was that you forced warm blood through the muscle tissue, making the muscle tissue more pliable. And then therefore the muscles then warmed up and let go. And when they let go, the pain stopped. When you were in bed, you were laying still, the muscles cool down. Now, for some people, they can't sit without back pain, but they can stand without back pain. And in that situation, you've got the hamstrings, and there's 3 of those on the back of the thighs that become tight. Now they pull the pelvis backwards, just the opposite. And what you'll find when you look at somebody standing, their back will look flat above their hips, like it's just one solid wall there, instead of having that little curve. That's a person with tight hamstrings, or it looks like their butt is kind of tucked underneath them as they stand up there. That's tight hamstrings. So what creates most of the low back pain that people deal with initially is the thigh muscles are tight either forward or backwards, and that's increasing or decreasing the curvature in the lower part of their spine, which then affects the disc and the nerves in that lower back, causing the pain.
Are you turning 65? Well, if so, the most important decision in your life right now is to determine which Medicare plan you need to be on for your unique changes in life. Are you still working? You on your employer's plan? How about being a snowbird? If so, you need to speak to a Medicare consultant who can help you with your needs. I'm Diane Daniels, and I'm the CEO of Medicare Nation. Go to www.62WhoKnew.com and click on the Medicare Nation tab. I will give you a free consultation to make sure we find the right plan for your unique needs.
What's the biggest threat to your retirement savings? It's not the stock market. It's the cost of long-term care. Home care, assisted living, or nursing facilities can drain your life savings in just a few years. That's why long-term care insurance isn't a luxury, it's a necessity. It protects your assets, preserves your independence, and gives your family peace of mind. Don't leave your future to chance. Visit 62WhoKnew.com and start planning the retirement you deserve. But I didn't realize that at a certain point in life, people need their children to be their children, their son, their daughter, not their nurse, not their healthcare person. It's great that you want to be there for your loved ones, but it's an incredibly stressful and emotional situation when you're trying to be someone's son and daughter and their nurse and their advocate and helping them throughout life. And people don't realize that. I know they don't.
Yeah, it's an all-encompassing thing that, as you point out, no one person can fill all those roles and, at the same time, lead their own lives. It's a full-time job to become a caretaker. So you have your caretaking, you have possibly kids that you're raising yourself, you have a spouse, partner, you have a job, a career. So it's like, how do you manage all that and manage it effectively? Because that's the other thing that happens is you start doing all these things and you're not doing any of them well or as efficiently as possible. And you want the best care for your parents. And I know that as I age, I hope I get the best care available. I don't want somebody's half attention, and I don't want to put that, and I think this is where you were going, I don't want to put that obligation on my son. I don't want to make him feel like he has to take his life, put it on hold, and take care of me. So we need to rethink how we create our aging plan.
Now that you hit the nail right on the head, because I'm sure your son would love to do that, but do you want your son? And nobody does want their son or daughter to put their life on hold. And we've had guests on this show that talk about the ramifications of the caretakers and how often, and the statistics just blow my mind, how often the caretaker gets ill or even predeceases the person they're taking care of because of the stress of suddenly putting their job on hold, putting their own children on hold, their own life on hold to become a full-time caretaker. We've brought on some best-selling authors and financial planners. Especially it affects women more than it affects men. I mean, women usually are the caretakers of the family. Not always. Men are catching up. We're getting a little better, but women are usually the matriarchs of the family are usually the ones that take time off work because the child has, terrible asthma, or their mom or dad or their in-laws need help. And it is usually mom that takes time off. And then, quite frankly, 20 years later, when mom and dad are in their early to mid 60s looking to retire, and dad has X amount of dollars in his 401k, and mom has 40 or 50% less. And they go, well, how the hell did that happen? We make the same amount of money. Well, you took 10 years off to take care of mom and dad. And again, the effects at that point in life on people, no one seems to be taking into consideration. I shouldn't say no one, but the masses are not taking into consideration. You know, they're putting your life on hold, what it may do to you in 20 years.
Yeah, that's just it. And I think the biggest thing, as you point out, is the gender difference. Is one is, 100% women end up being caretakers the majority of times. Women earn less money. So you have that. Even if a woman works the exact same amount of time as a man, I think they're still making 80% of what a male makes. But they're the ones who have to take time off to have a child. And they may, take a lesser position because they want to be there for the kids when they get out of school or to be active in schools. So there's a lot of reasons why women are going to earn less money, but yet women are the ones who have the longer lifespan. They're the ones who tend to stay healthier. So women are also going to be caretakers for their husbands. So again, it's like women are behind the eight ball, from the jump with all of these different factors. And that's when you have a couple that view the man and woman equally. And in a lot of cultures or demographics or however you want to slice it, is it's not viewed the same. The man is viewed as the head of the household. But we all know who are married that it's usually the woman who makes the household go and keeps things together. So it's changing that perspective, as you point out.
And so everybody's on Zoom. So when I ask mom and dads, what are the Ethels and the Marvins, what are your goals as you age? It is always the same response every single time for over 30 years that I've been working with families all across the world. And their response is, again, I want to age in place at home. And I don't want to be a burden on my kids. And when I ask the kids, because the kids are the ones reaching out to me, because the parents think things are going okay, and because in their perspective, it is going well, but it's at the mercy of their adult kids who are juggling 7,000 things and trying to not get divorced because now my spouse is saying, "Look, I love your parents, but you got to figure something out because now their needs are impacting our marriage and our finances and
our children, and
you're not present anymore. Like you have no energy for the relationship or the marriage anymore." And so, that's why it's so important that we have these conversations, because nobody wants to be a burden on anyone. And the adult kids, when I ask them, what are your goals for your parents as they age? It is always a variation of the same thing, but it's always, I want them to be safe is the first thing always. I want them to be happy. I want them to have the best quality of life and the best quality of care possible. Well, the only way to make that happen for everybody, for the whole family, then is obviously we have to plan for that then. And that means you need to facilitate your family meetings so that we can talk about the good, the bad, and the ugly of aging, of dementia, of the senior care costs and the landscape of senior care. People are like, well, we can just get home care. Well, you may not be able to, because what if in your area they don't have any more workers?
That's right.
I've got clients that are on waiting lists with home care companies because they're waiting to hire more people to be able to fully staff what that patient who's trying to stay at home needs, and they can't. And so they end up having to move into a care facility, and then they end up in whichever one has an open bed because they didn't put any forethought into this. And so as far as like from the financial planner piece of it, because I want to loop back to that, it's not surprising that they don't understand these concepts, because when you look at, for the CFP as example, there's nothing in their training that talks about relationships with your clients. There's nothing in there that talks about aging and caregiving and dementia and like the actual landscape of senior care. They're not trained in it. And so with my training with financial planners, because I train about 30 different financial planning firms. They're on my training. They're training clients of mine because they do want to differentiate themselves. They do know that their clients are starting to get more um, curious about, well, what can you offer me? Like, what value are you providing me? Because I'm paying you X amount of dollars a year.
Mm-hmm.
What am I getting for that? If you're only managing my finances, but you're not also connecting me with reliable, curated resources that I need, like aging and caregiving things, or estate docs or CPAs or anything like that. If you're just working in a silo, you're really causing you're really causing harm to the clients. And so clients are starting to become much more consumer aware and expect more from their advisors. And I know a lot of coachable advisors who are like, hey, I want to learn more about this whole aging thing. And I want to make sure that I have the right financial plan in place because many of them do care. There's a lot who clearly do not, but there are many who do care and really do want to do right by their clients.
So we've talked about, some of the reasons that this gray divorce trend has happened. And so let's pivot a little bit and talk about, what are the unique concerns and challenges that this population is then faced with. Obviously, and this is the same for most people getting divorces, but the same money that's been supporting one household now has to support two. And so both of them are going to take a 25% drop in their standard of living. Unless someone is willing to re-educate, get into the workforce, and somehow increase the income coming in. For this population, that's usually not even an option.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that becomes a very big foreboding financial concern. And of course, because they're so close to retirement, they've had this grand retirement plan that now they each get to approach having only half the resources that they were going to have.
Well,
It's a
and
very different view.
that's devastating.
Yeah.
I mean, because the older you get, I'm learning this the hard way too, the harder it is to change. So, if you are used to certain things in life, let's forget multimillionaires, and we're not talking about that. You're worth 10 million and you get divorced and now you're only worth 5 million. Boo-hoo. I couldn't care less. But to your average couple that, teachers, firemen, policemen, mortgage people, that have X and now suddenly have to have half of X, and suddenly instead of having, the exact car that they want, it's a little less expensive, and instead of taking a cruise twice a year, maybe you do it once a year, and then of course you go further down, and I don't mean down, but to a lower income, to your average American who today their homeowner's insurance premium is almost as high as their mortgage payment. Their car insurance, the average car is 50 G's. This is the worst possible time emotionally, physically, and financially for it to be happening to people. But as you said, it's more than doubled since they came out with that study. It's just the worst of all times for this to happen.
Think about costs of healthcare. So imagine if you've got a couple where you have a stay-at-home spouse or an underemployed spouse and an employee spouse, and maybe they're 3 or 4 years away from Medicare. Well, the employee spouse gets to keep his health insurance. The other person doesn't. And so now they have to go get private health insurance. And I got news for you. I just moved from Phoenix into northern Arizona, more rural community. And as a self-employed person, having to go to the exchanges, because my husband is 61, we're right there. To get health insurance here, first of all, there's one plan for me to choose from. And we are paying $2,400 a month with a $7,000 deductible. So we have to budget $40,000 a year for healthcare until Social Security kicks in. That's insane. So I think that's a huge burden on some of these couples, and especially for the spouse that has delegated the finances for their entire marriage. And that is not
That's
always the
right.
women.
No, that is absolutely correct.
Let me tell you
Yep.
what, men that know absolutely nothing about finance, doctors and lawyers,
Absolutely true.
right?
They're my favorite mortgage clients.
Yeah.
They go, Michael, we trust you. Call our CPA. We have, how much money did you make last year? I have no idea. Just call my CPA.
And so thankfully for those two professions, they can afford to hire the professionals they need. But
Exactly.
imagine for that more stereotypical non-CFO spouse who was the stay-at-home mom and was married for 30 years and now has to deal with managing all of her own finances. It is horrifying. And not only is there a great deal of fear about that, but there's a sense of shame. I talk to a lot of women who are really ashamed of themselves for not being more involved in the finances. And I always tell them, listen, it just wasn't your job. You just haven't been trained in this position. And let me help you get trained in that position so that you can feel competent.